clock, the Washington Commanders. It's the Detroit Lions now on the clock.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Rams
So
are up. They're on the clock.
Greenfield's finest.
And now on the clock, it's the Arizona Cardinals.
Never let a wishbone grow where backbone should. Belly been tell you the dash all wood. 10 payments the back ain't good. Got sense but they act no good. Shot through the lot of the starstruck. Hop in the ride and we took in the truck, couple in the truck and they all. They might say what's up when they see me around the city, but really no reason to talk much. Dinner at night,
the Chicago Bears are on the clock now.
No Bilbo Baggins, y'all coming up short. Take a recess. This a heat check. Yeah. Shorty, let me
on the clock now. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
For you, but it's for me. Seen it myself for years. The vision is mine alone.
Next
Just
up,
me, myself,
the
no peers.
Jets are on the clock.
Yeah. I don't know who hyping them boys. I'm done giving life
the
for
New York
the noise.
Giants are now on the clock.
Yeah. Get it and drove like it's whipping the stove.
On the clock,
like
the
no
Texans.
days off, no Sabbath, no snakes in my yard, no rabbits. Never let a wishbone
the
grow where
Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. Next up, the Titans are on the clock. On the clock now, the New England Patriots.
Let's explore the moment. And outside there, agoraphobic. If you see me
Next
live,
up,
you would know it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock.
Boss like we write the checks.
The Indianapolis Colts are now on the clock. Now on the clock, the Los Angeles Chargers. It's the Bears now on the clock.
Round if you wanna. Round if you wanna.
The Chiefs are on the clock. The Houston Texans are now on the clock. Up next, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock. The Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock.
With Tiffany, and they restore my agility. And I'm never rehearsing.
With
I'm
the
making
next
them
selection,
like Swizzy and
the
Timothy.
Lions are on the clock.
Cause I want all the smoke, you can call me a chimney. And I really want, but I settle
The
for
New
I can
Orleans
get it,
Saints
better
are
than
now on
Aim
the
at your head
clock.
when I kill a beat, spaghetti and shells like Italy.
Never let a
The
wishbone grow where
Minnesota
backbone should.
Vikings
Belly been tell you the dash
now on the
wood.
clock.
10 payment, the back ain't good. Got sense, but they act no good. Send the same money to Sudan, I could probably see the hood for a year or two. Stuck between stunting and a miracle. For real.
All right, now close your eyes. Think about your wildest dreams. You ready? And you still couldn't do this.
The Chicago Bears are now on the clock. The Jaguars are on the clock now. The New York Jets on the clock now.
I told you I'd be ready.
Now on the clock, the Giants. On the clock now, the Houston Texans. On the clock now, the Seattle Seahawks. With the next selection, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. On the clock now, it's the Atlanta Falcons. The Green Bay Packers are on the clock. The Chargers are up now. They're on the clock. With the next selection, the Carolina Panthers on the clock. The Kansas City Chiefs now on the clock. Now we turn to the Eagles. They're on the clock. Now on the clock, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. On the clock now, the Detroit Lions. The Denver Broncos are now on the clock. The Detroit Lions now on the clock. Now on the clock, the Rams. With the next pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. The New York Jets are now on the clock.
It's sympathy I lack. I care about one thing.
The New York Giants on the clock.
Anyway, gotta pay a little more. Late to the jack, gotta jet, 'cause the boat even ain't.
On the clock now, the Houston Texans. The Seattle Seahawks are now on the clock. It's now the Vikings' turn on the clock.
So much into tonight, and you just don't care. And I stop playing games, gun, bring up downstairs. Come on, girl, let's go. Come on, girl, let's go. Tonight, just don't care. Playing games, girl, bring your downstairs.
It's the New England Patriots, now on the clock. With the next selection, the Falcons are on the clock. The Green Bay Packers are now on the clock. On the clock now, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. The Panthers are on the clock. On the clock now, the Baltimore Ravens. With the next selection, the Browns are on the clock. It's now the San Francisco 49ers pick. They're up. On the clock now, the Chicago Bears. And now on the clock, the Minnesota Vikings. Next up, the Commanders are on the clock. With the next selection, the New York Jets. The Minnesota Vikings are now on the clock. The Los Angeles Rams now on the clock. The Atlanta Falcons are now on the clock. Next up, the Jets are on the clock. And now on the clock, it's the 49ers. Now on the clock, the Texans. Next up, it's the Seahawks on the clock. The Pittsburgh Steelers are now on the clock.
I just scraped it off the top, cut it out the road, out the curve, out the block. I was already sold, out of work by 10 o'clock. Too deep in the streets, felt that baby, that meant a lot. Whenever she calls, the what I gotta do, I'm moving with a two, I paid it out the full. Yeah, tell me what I gotta do. Pull up in a bucket crew, one for me and one for you. Yeah, like with the roof. I'm off the chain, don't cut me loose. Yeah, I'm off the chain, I'm off the noose. Yeah, get them picked off Bentley, white like cotton. Residential so good, my doors don't gotta lock 'em. Watch the dirty money with oxy. I miscount cause I'm off a... Yeah, these bigger than a damn proxy. Call my he said copy. Get that plug like a boogie. I like riches, hit like nookies. You ain't scared of no, but you scared to put on your hoodie. Man, my
it's the Atlanta Falcons now on the clock. It's the Bucks now on the clock. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. It's the Cowboys now on the clock.
New toys.
The Baltimore Ravens are on the clock now.
On my neck, my boy. That 100 bunny rabbits trying to
The Houston Texans are now on the clock.
My boy.
The San Francisco 49ers are now on the clock.
You regret, my boy, cause we got banana.
The Chicago Bears are on the clock now. It's the Detroit Lions now on the clock.
The flex, my boy. Personalize every
on the clock now, it's the Denver Broncos.
Direct, my boy. And if you need a couple, I'm the connect,
the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock now. The Jaguars are on the clock. With the next pick, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. It's the New Orleans Saints now on the clock. It's the Buffalo Bills now on the clock. With the next selection, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. It's the Carolina Panthers now on the clock. The New England Patriots are now on the clock. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock. It's now the Indianapolis Colts selection. On the clock now, the Houston Texans. The Baltimore Ravens now on the clock. The Cleveland Browns are now on the clock. The Carolina Panthers now on the clock. It's the Bears now on the clock. With the next selection, the Lions are on the clock. On the clock now, the Los Angeles Rams. The Minnesota Vikings now on the clock. are up. They're on the clock. On the clock now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The New York Jets on the clock now. The New York Giants are now on the clock. It's the Cleveland Browns now on the clock. Now the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. The Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock now. On the clock now, it's the Atlanta Falcons. Next up, it's the Packers on the clock. The Los Angeles Chargers now on the clock. On the clock now, the Houston Texans. The Jaguars are on the clock now. With the next selection, the Ravens are on the clock. With the next selection, the Falcons are on the clock. Now on the clock, the San Francisco 49ers. Next up, the Patriots are on the clock. The Washington Commanders are now on the clock. The Cardinals on the clock now. The Denver Broncos are on the clock. The Miami Dolphins now on the clock. On the clock now, the Baltimore Ravens. Now on the clock, the Giants. The Buffalo Bills are now on the clock. Now on the clock, the Texans. On the clock now, the Seattle Seahawks. It's the Steelers now on the clock.
If God
Next
for me,
up,
who could be
the
against me?
Cleveland Browns
Against
are
all
on the
of
clock.
that's against me. They the ones stirring up the
On
conflict.
the clock now,
They try to make
it's
it out
the
like I'm
Green Bay
conflicted.
Packers.
East Coast,
Now
the 6
on the
4s
clock,
switch.
the Los
It's not a
Angeles
conflict of
Chargers.
interest.
Cut it with the business. West Coast
The
rocking
Tennessee
them Timberland,
Titans
deep
are
up in
now
them
on the
trenches.
clock.
It's no difference.
The Baltimore
Neither one play
Ravens
games
are
from swinging
on the
for them
clock
fences.
now.
We want the finer things that's expensive. That hit them either close range or at a distance. If God for me, why bother? I got my
The
game from the
Houston
Godfather.
Texans are now
With a
on
full
the
chain,
clock.
rock bottom, and handle my business when it was my
It's
problem.
the Tennessee Titans
Crossing with a
now
gold
on
chain.
the
I
clock.
got my Turkish rope with matching gold things. Bomber
It's the
jacket in the
Dallas
winter. It's a cold
Cowboys
game.
now
I
on
miss
the
the East
clock.
Coast up in Spokane. Some of the realest in this dope game. I got my curly top looking like special.